Hey guys, my name is Morgan and welcome to today's video. This is going to be a project once again. I'm not happy with how it is looking. There's all kinds of powdery mildew which is going on, and it's actually very strange because that is caused from high humidity and lack of ventilation. They're outside, so I don't see how that's even possible, but it looks like that they are suffering from some powdery mildew, and they're not really performing as well as I thought, and some of the stalks that I've left in, they're starting to completely die back, and after doing some research, they actually don't grow back if you cut them that far. So the pruning that I did do was perfectly fine, and these ones that I did do a little bit of a test on, they did not succeed. So I'm going to be chopping everything out. I'm not going to pull anything out. I'm going to chop them because the other day when I pulled one of these out, I found that in the rhizosphere, which is where all the root systems are, there was actually a lot of like organisms. There was a lot of worms and a little like bugs and beetles and stuff like that. So I'm not going to pull anything out because I don't want to lose any of that, any of those organisms. So I'm just going to chop them, give a little bit of a mix through, and maybe put a little bit more compost mulch and some of the compost that I have at the back there with that those coarse leaves and twigs and stuff that I have in there. So I'm going to sort out this, and I'm actually going to be planting some basil in as well, in and amongst all of the new tomatoes that I'm going to put in. I've been keeping these in some water for a couple of weeks now, and they are actually growing so many roots that they're starting to push themselves up. So I'm going to put that in, and I'm also going to be putting in these beautiful tomatoes in here. I know I did plant them a lot in one cell, and this was before I actually decided to only plant two. I actually got my seed packet wet, and I thought, okay, let me just plant them instead of trying to recover whatever I have. So I just put everything in and hope for the best, and lo and behold, a lot of the tomatoes have sprung up. These are some beans I'm going to be planting a bit later, but these tomatoes and the basil is going to go in here for today. Just to show you guys quickly, this is what I'm dealing with. All of this powdery mildew, and it is not very pleasant to look at, and a lot of the plants don't seem to be doing as well as what I thought. Look, there's a whole patch inside over here. It's actually killed this new growth that is supposed to be coming up. So yeah, I'm going to cut them down, mix what I have through, and then get our new tomatoes and our basil in here. So this is what we are left with, and I will point out as well, I do have some succulents going on the side here. I just put them in here just to see how they'd work. They started making roots, and I just put them in there to see how that goes, and they seem to be doing pretty well. They seem to be growing quite nicely. Here we actually have an avo. This is actually quite a funny story. So what I did was I put the avo pip straight in the ground, and I was not expecting it to grow. I just put it in there and left it, and it got watered when the tomatoes got watered, and it actually sprung up and it worked. I shouldn't actually be surprised, but I am, because I've never planted them straight in the ground and had success. I've always put them in water with the toothpicks and the whole situation like that, and then the root comes out, and eventually the stalk starts coming out, and then you'd plant it in the ground. I've never done it straight in ground before, so I was really excited about that. So just thought I'd put that in there as well. This is also just a flower that happened to start growing in here. I didn't plant this, it just came up, and I thought, okay, it's very beautiful, so I'll just leave it in there. But yeah, this is what we're dealing with. The lettuce as well, also not doing 100%. We had a huge heat wave that came over, and a lot of the leaves, like here at the bottom, they shriveled up and they're not doing too well. But the lettuce is still alive, so I'm going to keep them in there, and hopefully they will pick up again and they'll carry on growing nicely. But yeah, just thought I'd mention that in there as well. It is now time to get our fork and start mixing through and getting our soil prepped for the new seedlings. See, this is the kind of life that we are talking about. And I actually put these earthworms in the bed. I put them in when I planted the tomatoes the first time. They are still alive, still cruising, and I can actually see even over here there's some little babies. So they are doing absolutely fantastic in here, and they're doing exactly what I'm wanting, which is eating all the broken down matter and releasing what is called humus, which is very good and very nutritious for plants. So that's why I put them in here, and there are hundreds of them. I can see as I'm digging through, and I haven't even gotten halfway through the bed yet, and there are so many worms. So that's a very good sign if you see worms. So there we have it. This is what our bed is looking like at the moment, and what I've actually decided is I'm going to put a layer of compost mulch down, and then I'm going to plant them, and then I'm going to take some grass clippings that I still have from when I cut the grass a couple of days ago, that I have down at the bottom. I'm going to take those grass clippings and I'm going to put it over, just to give some extra protection on keeping the moisture at a high, because like we know, tomatoes are a very shallow rooting plant. They don't have a lot of roots that go down very deep. So I'm going to make extra sure that there's going to be a lot of moisture and a lot of water that's going to be stored, just because I don't want them to dry out because they're so young, and because the weather says that it's going to be hot for the next couple of days. So I'm going to make double sure that nothing dries out and they will be all good. The next step now is to carefully remove our tomato seedlings, making sure that we don't damage any of the roots. I'm probably going to damage a few. I mean, they are planted very close together and it is inevitable to not damage any roots. So I'm going to try my best. So let's get these tomato seedlings in the new bed. Okay, so what I've decided is I'm going to plant a bunch, and then I'm just going to prune off the weakest, because to get one plant out of all of this, I'm going to be losing like 90% of all the roots. So I'm just going to plant little bunches, and then I will thin out a little bit later, and I'll see which ones establish, and then I will then prune off the weaker ones and the ones that have died. So I'm going to plant little things, maybe like two or three at a time. And I haven't forgotten about the basil. I'm going to be planting a row, so I'm going to have rows of tomatoes, and then I'm going to have 1, 2 basil, and then I'm going to carry on with the tomato, then I'm going to have 1, 2 basil, and then I'm going to carry on with the tomato this side. So I'll see how many tomato plants I have. I think I have a decent amount actually. I don't know how many little seedlings I have, but I think I have quite a lot. So I haven't forgotten about the basil. I'll be planting them in a little bit later. One thing to remember about transplanting from something that has been in water to establish roots, from transplanting them from that into soil, is you want to keep the plant very, very moist. You want to keep the ground very moist. You want to make sure that nothing dries out, because the plant has been living and surviving in just water. So now by transplanting them into something that's a little bit more dry, they might not be used to it. So you need to make sure that your ground is nice and moist and you're watering often and nothing is drying out. Right, there we go. That is the seedlings planted. Now what I want to do is get a little bit of some grass clippings and then put it over just as an extra protection of some nice mulch. Alright, there we go. So we have got our grass clippings on top as a nice mulch, and you might think that it might be a little bit pointless because you can't even see anything now, but as the tomatoes grow up I'll be adding a little bit more mulch. I just put a little piece over on top here now just to protect them a little bit from any direct sun hitting the soil at this stage. So I know exactly where they are and I can still see them, and I haven't covered any of them, so they will still be able to get some sunlight and they will still be able to survive. The main thing is you don't want to cover the top of any seedlings or any plant for that matter with any kind of mulch. It's not a good idea to restrict them from getting sunlight. They will start developing all kinds of diseases like powdery mildew. Still not too sure how it happened with mine, but yeah, that's going to be this bed. Just a little water now and then we'll be all good. The bed is now totally complete. We've got our seedlings in, our tomatoes, our basil, a nice layer of mulch and a good drink of water. I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you really enjoy.